Okay, good afternoon. The challenge is that we are the last roundtable, and the risk is that we'll suffer from accidents if we put ourselves as an obstacle among us and drinks and networking in wonderful Leon. This is the end of a wonderful day with speakers, many interesting speakers, with activities of buyers networking. So congratulations to all the participants. So these are the co-leaders of the public sector and the private sector of the National Forum of Cybersecurity. Some months ago, the President presented the work done by the Cybersecurity Forum, and this is a public meeting to share with all the participants the progress of the Cybersecurity Forum, which is characterized by putting together two group works: cyber defense and regulation. The National Forum is an assistant body to the National Council of Cybersecurity. It was constituted in the pandemic in July 2020 or June 2020, and for over 2 years we've been working with experts in the matter with public and private institutions with the aim of promoting concrete actions and to make this PPP tangible. That's why we are public and private agents as part of the group. So to promote industry, R&D and I, to promote training, talent, to promote everything within a public-private partnership framework under the umbrella of the National Council. The forum is a multidisciplinary forum with representatives from civil society, independent experts, public and private experts, academics, NGOs, and for group work number 1, security, Elena de la Calle was the technical counselor of the Council, National Council, and Gianluca D'Antonio. Group 2, Luis Fernando Álvarez-Gascón, Vice President of AMETIC. Group 3, Training, Capacity Building and Talent, Pablo López, Head of Cybersecurity Service, CCN, and Paco Sampalo representing the universities. Group 4, Analysis and Support of the Industry, Captain Manuel Alvargonzález, and Clara Tébar from TEDAE, the Spanish Association of Defense, Security, Airspace, technical aspects. And also Group 5, Guillermo Fernández OCC. I'm not going to succumb to any pressure. 4 minutes for each one, and I would like to start with the culture group work. Elena, how relevant is cybersecurity culture in society? Thank you, Lola. Cybersecurity culture is very relevant in society. It is difficult to find a domain of our personal professional life in which that is not developed in cyberspace. That's why we are more exposed to risks and threats. That's a famous exhibition or exposition surface that has exponentially increased over the last years, and we need to take into consideration the current geopolitical situation, which make us to be more exposed to threats and risks. To counter this, it's important to know them and to know what we can do to protect ourselves at a personal level, at a company level, in the public and private sectors level. And if unfortunately we fall prey of cyber attacks, we need to know whom to address. From a national security point of view, and the cyberspace security is a priority goal. And increasing cybersecurity goal is one of the main axes included in the Cybersecurity National Strategy. There are indicators that show that we are moving forward, but there's still a long way to go. There's a great deal of things we have to do. In terms of the forum, as someone mentioned, the forum is an important element of the national security system. It's a working group of the Cybersecurity National Council, and important contributions have been done with the publications of the first works of the forum. You can download them from the website. And the culture group has analyzed the existing initiatives internationally and nationally. Opportunities of improvement have been identified, and a series of concrete initiatives have been defined. If I'm not mistaken, I'm talking about 65 new initiatives. We are currently working on 2 initiatives to foster co-responsibility of citizens and companies. As we always say in our department, national security is a shared project in which we play a role. And for example, if we compare this with the driving, we need to improve security of roads and security of vehicles, but we are at the wheel, and we need to know the traffic code, and we need to implement and put this into practice to protect ourselves and to protect the rest of society. Okay, thank you, Elena. So we are like home here, and when we said, what do citizens have to do when facing cyber attacks? Of course, knowing everything, but also 017 phone number. And we are here to support you, and we can proudly say that we provide service to 44 million citizens in Spain. So thank you for this reminder, because this helps us to promote this phone number 017. So industry. Is the national industry prepared to compete at an international level and be competitive also at a national level where we see the market is becoming more and more fragmented? Okay, thank you very much. And good afternoon, everybody. I must say that it's an honor for me to be part of this forum with my colleagues. Now, to answer to your question, I would like to answer using the figures we saw on the video. We have some data, but how is the industry and how is our research system and investigation system? Well, this is the challenge of our work group, and this is one of the milestones we have set. However, if we don't have data, you will have to accept my opinion, and my opinion is as follows. The specific professional service cybersecurity in cybersecurity in our country is at the level of any industrial ecosystem. We work with Spanish companies that develop this activity in our country, abroad as well. Abroad we have multinational companies, but also multinational companies located in Spain with the nationals, national workers. So this helps us to be very competitive at a national and international level. Challenge is the access to a technological platform which is not Spanish, based on foreign technology. This happens here and in other countries. So we talk specifically about national industry. Now the question would be, we don't have the industry some of us dream of. We don't have the industry we might have. And the main question is, do we have the industry that we need to comply with our security goals? The development of this industry is supported by companies, but is done thanks to public policies in this matter. And we need to highlight the role of INCIBE in this domain, because they foster different tools, entrepreneurship or public procurement, which is very trendy at this moment. But also, we need to think about how market can be improved, because companies find their opportunities on the market. I would like to highlight and say that this This is part of the national strategy of cybersecurity. That's why we're talking about this. We are interested on that because many reasons, because it is related to the economy of the country, employment, but because this is a national security issue as well. And the goal is to provide this topic with clarity. So we talked about ranking, and we in the ITU ranking, and we are 4th in this ranking because we have public policies that allow us to generate mechanisms to improve on a daily basis, and also the industry that is represented very well here. Thanks to that, we are at the 4th place. If we should rely 100% on foreign companies, what would be the point of having this kind of mechanisms? But of course, we are in the 4th place. Olympic diploma is okay, but a medal is even better. Pablo, let's talk about talent, because we mentioned industry, but we need to mention also talent. So the industry should do something to acquire talent, the talent required by companies and by public administration. I think the answer is very simple. We need to continue working and doing what we do. Talent is not something spontaneous or independent. It's a result of a process. So cybersecurity should be considered as a set of capability. What we do with the industry, what we do with the culture, what we do with everything to tell cybersecurity. Talent should be considered as a result of the process, of a process. It's a matter of maturity, of internalizing things. The cybersecurity culture should be adopted by everybody, and in a progressive way for talent to be meaningful. So we need to identify profiles. You need to continue doing what you do, to continue doing what you do to achieve this. But the reality will be based on the evolution of the capabilities we have. The state of the art cannot be imposed, but it should be rather the result of a process. I fully agree with you. And each of the entities working in talent, in capabilities and capacities should join efforts. And this should be built from the basis up. A kid should not think a hacker is something negative with a hood and a mask. We are men and women, but we need to see that there are other profiles that are part of the cybersecurity talent profile in our country. Young men, young women, women and men who are not necessarily young, but the future is brightening. That's why we need to internalize cybersecurity as something ours. Everything else will flow from that, will flow from a process. So, congratulations, and thanks to the support of the Secretariat of State for Cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a pillar, is a basic pillar, and it's a leap forward for humanity. Okay, Manuel, let's talk about defense. What are the main challenges the Joint Command in the Ministry of Defense has to find national solutions to counter threats we face in this very complicated geopolitical situation? Thank you very much for the invitation. I want to join my colleagues, and I would like to say that armed forces should have an integral system for military operations in cyberspace to give a full answer to the operational needs, enabling a coordinated, consistent response of all the infrastructure operations for the defense and exploitation and attacks that develop in cyberspace, as well as training, instruction, operations that are corresponding to them. Cyberspace has many peculiarities, we all know, that makes it to be different from the other fields where the armed forces operate, which is very relevant from an industrial point of view, specifically technological vulnerability, heterogeneity of threats, and the fast evolution of techniques and procedures that are used. Within this context, cyber defense systems imply developments that are complex with a high technological complexity and added value. Their lifespan is more ephemeral than other aspects, and this aspect obliges us to flexibilize and reduce deadlines by the associated process, which has an impact on the sustainability, modernization, and replacement when they become obsolete. But we rather use double-use technologies and their interaction at a civilian and military levels. That is the reason why the role of the private sector, national for equipment supply and lifespan, is very important. The essential interest of national defense and security require an important industrial capacity that is strategic for defense, and it requires the maximum degree of national participation in programs to obtain capabilities, avoiding as much as possible technological dependence from manufacturer and suppliers that come from abroad, as mentioned. It is interesting to continue supporting the industrial capacity at a national level to position them as international providers of cyber defense systems, and also betting for opening to new markets, which allows for opportunities to continue learning, innovating, and growing. One way of obtaining this is cooperations between private companies, public organizations, and universities. Spain has currently a very important technological industrial capabilities in cybersecurity, unlike what the situation is in cyber defense. The offers on the market are fewer, and many technologies applicable to defensive operations in cyberspace, this could be characterized by double usage, which is a shortcoming when talking about exploitation system, meaning intelligence, and response, that we call attack. These two domains, and for obvious reasons, the Ministry of Defense can become the main client at a national level. For this reason, some companies cannot be motivated to work in this regard. But we should bear in mind that for many states that are developing their cyber defense capabilities, especially in Latin America, cyberspace joint command is a reference actor, and using products open up many possibilities on the market for them. To conclude, international cooperation turns out to be essential due to investments required, high technologies that are employed, as well as the benefits of participating in multinational teams whenever we can access international markets. There are more and more opportunities in European projects in cyber defense. That's all. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. This is very important new dual usage technology. We have the strategic compass launched by the European Union for defense of assets and cyberspace, and we talk about also of strategic sovereignty in the field of defense and cybersecurity, which is trendy, of course, but also the European Center for Competences, and in conversations we had with Brussels, we were talking about civil use technologies, and we adopted unanimously double usage technologies in the private sector as well. So we're still waiting for the industry that provide solutions in the sphere of cybersecurity in order to avoid the difficulties the Ministry of Defense and the Cyber Defense Group have. So Group 5, Guillermo, regulation, which is very important. What are the regulatory and norm changes are necessary to reinforce our national capabilities? Good afternoon, Lola. Good afternoon, everybody. Group 5, as mentioned, is the last group that was set up in the Cybersecurity National Forum, which is another element within the national security structure, which is co-led by the Ministry of the Interior and the Elcano Royal Institute, in lines with the principles established by the National Cybersecurity Strategy: efficiency, units of actions, resilience, and anticipation. These are the main four pillars. The mandate of this group is based on the National Security Act and the participation in public fields of the stakeholders, civil society, academia, public sector, private sector, and the generation of synergies. And to answer to your question, actually, the most important regulatory milestone, which is also a challenge, is mainstreaming the NIS2 directive, but the challenge is also the current initiative. I mean, the coordination of the different stakeholders involved in the Cybersecurity Permanent Commission, because cybersecurity is a cross-cutting issue, which requires knowledge as indicated by the strategy for cybersecurity at the European Union approved in 2020. And that's what we want. We need to share. All the stakeholders should share, both public and private. Well, that's a big challenge in your group, because talking about regulation and change in the law, the process is slow, and we cannot waste time, and we should be innovative, and we need to be agile and fast. Otherwise, other member states are implementing regulation that favors the contracted national products, and this is what we want to do.
We'll now talk with the private sector represented here, and we want to hear about the milestones. I want to start with Gianluca from Work Group 1. What are the successes that you will reach, and what deliverables you have planned for this year 2022? Thank you, Lola. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the kind invitation. On behalf of SMS Forum, we are almost ready in our work. We started last year, and after the good experience from last year, where we delivered this famous white book with many ideas and 65 initiatives to develop, and we set an even more ambitious objective: how to change the dynamics and the politics of the private sector without having to resort to regulation, which, as you said, takes many years to be processed. We often talk about good governance as a way to demonstrate commitment to society of the private companies, which has the CCN-CERT Code of Good Governance as a reference. So we suggested the launch of a joint working group together with large private companies from virtually every sector, together with the CNMV, and they took up the challenge, and we're very proud of the work we have done. As you know, in the Good Governance Code from CNMV, it is very motivating for companies to demonstrate commitment to sustainability, transparency, integration, diversity, and we wanted to include cybersecurity in this code. As you have all said, cybersecurity is absolutely essential for national security purposes, for the defense area. It can be an economic trigger due to the opportunities it actually entails, and what we wanted to do was to incorporate, to add cybersecurity to the commitments that companies have to society. We have already prepared the Good Governance Code for cybersecurity, which will be released, if everything goes according to plan, in the beginning of next year. It is a code of principles that is mainly aimed at CEOs, so that they can take these good governance in cybersecurity as a key part of their companies, and this will create an incredible change. And in line with what you said, do we want to be fourth or third in the world? I think with these changes, if we are able, we will manage to be, because nobody else in Europe is in a position similar to where we are. The people who have done this change, who have effected this change, have seen great changes, and we believe that we will be able to create, to make a change, not only for companies that are listed in the stock exchange, but the remaining of the companies will have the momentum to add cybersecurity as one of the sustainability principles, and we will be talking about digital sustainability next year, because it starts from sustainability. So this is the achievement, and we would like to, with the aim and support of the department, we will manage this. We will closely follow this code of good governance for different entities and companies, which I think will be valid for any company, any private company, regardless of their size. We would like to think cybersecurity has one more value. Work Group 2 from the industry, Luis Fer, can you tell us what your challenges are for this 2022 and what your milestones were? Well, in our case, we are very diverse. We have the industry, we have institutions, we have the world of science and technology, with important representation and a great contribution to all the work we have done. In fact, part of what we do is part of the aim to develop excellent science, something which is not often reflected in the development of an industry that highlights this knowledge generation. And I wanted to highlight this. One of the lines of actions was to try and define certain taxonomy and common indicators to allow permeability between the two worlds. This is included in the first version of the White Book, and we want to have first version. We also think about what the cybersecurity integral measure, gauge how we should make progress in that regard. And we want to have those indicators to be able to have our own criteria, and here we will specify in which direction we want to make progress. We will also work on a taxonomy or description for a value chain in cybersecurity, so as to put the players in this ecosystem in their own place. There is a more inclusive area which comes to show how difficult it is to work with SMEs. Here we are making a great effort, and we believe that our contribution is to define a control panel to see and measure the impact of the different measures that we have heard about earlier this morning, so including the digital kit, for instance. We are following up how we can measure and gauge the impact of these measures. Maybe the nucleus of this work group is in research and development and innovation in the industry. Here, the actual core would be the strategic agenda for research, science and technology, particularly considering that we have the new statewide plan for science and innovation as part of the Spanish strategy. And here, again, we want to and this requires additional resources beyond those that are present in the forum. We want to work around science and innovation in cybersecurity. There is another line of action related to talent. And here the focus is strictly working with talent in the industry. The first version of the workbook already proposed things related to capacity building, retention, motivation, even certain ideas with regard to staff management policies. And here we will propose a roadmap to make these activities a reality. And the new thing is that we have activated the international tools. We want to define an agenda for the promotion from the international promotion of Spanish technology, and conversely we also want to attract talent and investment from elsewhere into our country. I think this is enough for our work group for the remaining of the year. Yeah, I stand testimony to this because I am a co-leader of Working Group 2, and I can attest to the work that they are doing, and it is important to have such strategic agenda in place for innovation in cybersecurity, to add it to that of the Ministry of Science, because as we said earlier, Pablo, cybersecurity would be part of one of the pillars for the development of our economy. Paco Sampalo from CRUE, can you tell us more about the work that you will be doing in your capacity building and training work group? Yes, I will be very specific and succinct because this work group has been working intensely. Pablo has made it work very fast, and particularly taking into account that from our forum, what we do is to launch proposals which may be adopted, and those with the authority to develop them can develop them. So our job was to launch proposals, very specific proposals, for training, capacity building and talent management. And first we did a vision of all possible fields of action, and the specific action was centered around cybersecurity, particularly for capacity building, and this entailed the development of a certification route for heads of cybersecurity and the framework for its application. This roadmap was devised and developed thoroughly from the onset, and we want to develop this to give it the legal form so it can be applied. We have the procedure approved from 2010, and we wanted to define a series of requirements for the heads of cybersecurity, which are the core player. Another specific action that was led by CRUE was the development of a competence framework for study plans to become an expert in cybersecurity, oriented towards university syllabi. And in this particular case, we worked on that specific issue. There aren't virtually any specific degrees in cybersecurity in the Spanish universities. There are certain masters in place, and a group of lecturers and experts developed this framework, but this is the positive part, by the way, and this is one of the important elements of the forum. As part of this framework of skills and competencies, we had the contribution from the private businesses, from essential services industry, not only the experts who were leading the project, but we also requested the opinion and contribution of different stakeholders, and the result is a document that was recently published and made available on the forum's website not even a month ago. And the next step that Pablo has requested from us to do is to create a platform to create a cybersecurity platform geared towards executives, business executives. So we're talking about the top management, the boards of the companies, be it private or public companies. And this is a very complex challenge, as you can imagine. But we want to create a very dynamic platform. We are short of time, so that's all from me. Yes, I would like to highlight here the work for profile alignment nationally, together with the ENISE, with the European agency. And if somebody gets their training in Malta, for instance, they can come to work here because we're going to know that they comply with the minimum requirements set out in Spain. We need to work with the different member states so that we all speak the same language. We know that the taxonomy is complex enough, and we want to have some common areas. Clara, the same goes to you, since you are one of the most novel work groups. What are your objectives for this year, 2022? Thank you, Lola. Well, I wanted to echo the words of gratitude for the organization of this forum, also the Department of National Security for making our work, the work of our work group, visible. The aim we have is to push the cyber defense industry. So when I am asked about the milestones that we want to achieve, well, the main one is to have an early picture of the capacities and technologies that are available in Spain in cyber defense. We want to know what those capacities are. We want to analyze them vis-à-vis a series of needs that have been identified in the field, and we also want to see what challenges we need to respond to. This PPP in the area of cyber defense will allow us to, on the one hand, create a technological industrial base for cyber defense, but also, as you mentioned, to have a leading role in the development of strategic autonomy across Europe. It will also allow us to know what capacities we have, but also to know what those technological loopholes are, and to know where our technological industry is and where we need to invest. Also, through this work group, we want to contribute to at least 4 of the lines included in the National Cybersecurity Strategy. First, reinforce the cyber defense capacity and cyber intelligence capacities, push cybersecurity among businesses and society as a whole, reinforce the Spanish industry in the area of cyber defense, and finally, and as the commander has mentioned, international commitment to make our industry part of other markets, and also to make it take part in a series of initiatives from NATO and from Europe, such as the EDA, the European Defence Fund, or the EDP. That's why Work Group 4 has been coordinating with the TEDAE and also has been cooperating with the General Directorate of Armament and Material, and with the support of the Confederation of Spanish Businesses. We have had representatives from these different organizations, also independent experts and leading companies in the area of cyber defense, and may I just say their names, since they have worked really hard over the course of these last months. OAUTEC, Centum, CIMPA, EPICOM, GMV, Indra, NTT Data, Navantia, Tecnalia and Technobit. The report will be submitted in December in the forum, and in an effort to push the cyber defense industry forward, we want to continue to work in the field of cybersecurity along the research and development and innovation lines to reinforce our cyber defense industry. As I said earlier, Being here today is a great satisfaction, because we hear more and more how necessary it is to have a competitive defense base. This is something that it is often heard in Europe, but it's also important to have a competitive industrial technological base in defense, in cyber defense. And this is also an area, as you know, that knows no limits and no boundaries. I wanted to mention the last initiative of the strategic compass from the European Union that makes a reference to the need to have a cyber defense policy to promote those capacities, to promote interoperability, and here we believe that the roadmap that we have is very promising, and with the results of this work group, what we want to do is to contribute to this. Thank you. Thank you. I would like to call out to those entrepreneurs and innovators to say to them that the defense sector can also be a very interesting market niche, because innovation is very important from these startups, because their innovation is much more swift and agile than that of those companies that are now working with the joint command. I'm referring to defense entrepreneurs. We often say how we sometimes lack that open invitation for the entrepreneurs to be part of your sector. Guillermo, finally, as the representative of the newest group, the Group for Defense, what are your most remarkable milestones in this year? Well, those are marked by the National Security Department, Cybersecurity Department. We want to submit our work shortly, and we want to summarize the contributions from the group. We were combined or working in 4 subgroups, one for the regulatory reforms, looking at the space for improvement, room for improvement, also another one to follow the processes and how we can intervene, and finally a strategic agenda to be proactive and to work on what Europe is demanding in terms of the challenges that we have currently. I would also like to highlight that as part of the initiative against ransomware led by the US and with the participation of Spain, the US, in order to know that the National Forum on Cybersecurity, we were asked to deliver a talk as part of the Public-Private Partnership work group led by Spain. We did that talk, and this was delivered by Elena Calle, who did a great job. No doubt, a fantastic example, and we had the General Director of ENISE, and we know that we are leading by example, and we should be proud of this, because this is Spain. PPP that we can show and demonstrate that gives positive results. Thank you all for your contributions. We wish you all success, and we would like to thank all the participants for their work and their efforts to make Spain a more resilient, safer, more competitive and leading country internationally. I would now like to invite Félix Barrolo, General Director of INCIBE, and Carla Redondo, Secretary General of INCIBE, on stage to award the recognitions to all the participants of the National Forum on Cybersecurity who, with their effort, have cooperated and contributed to the development of this deliverable. Thank you. We are really proud of having a pioneering initiative such as the National Cybersecurity Forum, and we are very appreciative of the work that you all do. I think it's an example for the remaining sector of our economy, or our society, and in recognition of the great work that you are doing, we want to give you these awards. Gianluca D'Antonio, Juan Francisco Cornago, Carlos Lillo, Julia Perea, Mar López, Lucía Aro, Miguel Ángel Cañada, Lola Rebollo, Susana de la Fuente, Luis Fernando Álvarez, Ana Hierve, Paco Sampalo, Javier Jarauta, Juan González, Beatriz Soto, Luis Barreda, Carla Baonza, and Tatiana Gutiérrez.